My best friend has changed. I've known my friend Gary now for over 17 years, since we were 11 and started high school, and recently he's started to change. Me and Gary first met in English class when our teachers sat us next to one another. I was young and eager to make new friends, so as soon as we sat down, I introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Peter. What's your name?" I said, attempting to form some sort of friendship on the first day of school. "Gary," he replied sheepishly, clearly riddled with nerves. "Nice to meet you, Gary. Do you like superheroes?" I asked him with a grin so wide I'm surprised I didn't put him off. "Yeah," he blurted out with a bit more enthusiasm. After that we spoke all English lesson, barely getting any work done. We spoke about the Batman and Iron Man films that have been released, and he told me he had never watched the Iron Man film. I was shocked and explained to him how I had it on DVD, and if he wrote down his mum's number and I wrote down my mum's number when we got home, we could give it to each other the next day and we could arrange a sleepover.
After that, we were always together throughout high school, college, and university. We didn't speak as much after uni, but still kept in contact, and would meet occasionally when we had the time, and have a few drinks and reminisce. The last time I saw Gary before the events I will share today was a year ago at the airport, after me, Gary, and our wives all put some savings together and wanted to go and explore some of South America. On our trip, I noticed some small changes, but nothing major. He started to wince when he got upset or tired, and would always cuddle into his wife's thighs whilst on whatever sofa our accommodation had to offer. I just put it off as him being submissive to his wife. He never did have much confidence, so I can't imagine he would in the bedroom either. Yet it was off-putting having to deal with that for 4 months.
Whilst in Argentina, we went to a small Welsh pub, and he said to me, "Do you remember the day when we walked through He Woods after school one day, and we saw that dead dog?" he said, tone so serious I wouldn't want to imagine it again. "Yeah, why?" I muttered, concerned at what might come out of his mouth next. "I think about that a lot. It sickens me that nobody had the dignity to bury that beautiful creature, not even us. Why didn't we do anything, Peter?" he exclaimed, progressively getting louder with each word, as locals started to give irritated glances. "We were young, man. Look, it's getting late. Let's get back to the hotel," I said, confused by his anger, yet understanding in some strange way. After that night in Argentina, I was glad there was only a week left of our trip. I started to feel uncomfortable around Gary and his submissive actions, so I ended up being pretty distant from the group for the rest of the trip, which soured it slightly. But he was still my best friend. Recently, however, Gary has gone through a messy divorce and moved back to our hometown, where I still reside. I offered him a drink to catch up and to try lift his spirits, but this is when I started to notice some major changes. Not in his behavior, but in his appearance. He looked messy, the sort of messy you would see in an over-the-top drama series. His hair was down to his shoulders, his breath smelt awful, his nails were long and looked like an uncleaned barbecue grill, and he was unhealthy skinny. I chalked this up to him having some form of depression, and I was worried for him. I asked him how he was dealing with everything, and he explained how it was tough but nice being back home, and how his dad had given him a job as a receptionist at the veterinary he works at whilst he gets back on his feet. Hearing that made me a bit more relaxed, as I believed he would get back on his feet, but I was still upset having to see him in that state.
I saw Gary a few more times, but it seemed like every time all he would talk about is the animals that came through the doors of his work, how mistreated and how it would cause his blood boil. Overall, though, it seemed like he was enjoying the job and definitely getting back onto his feet. Roughly a fortnight ago, I got a message from Gary asking if he could stay the night. Just chill out, have some beers, and he'll crash on the sofa. Me and my wife didn't have an issue with this, as it was a Friday, so none of us had work the next day. This is a day I have come to regret. The night went well. We all had a good time. My wife went to bed, and we put Iron Man on to remind ourselves of why we became friends. At around 2 a.m., I went to bed.
At 4 a.m., I woke back up. I heard a strange noise coming from the living room and went downstairs to go and check on Gary. What I saw turned my blood cold. Gary, scratching at the door, naked on all fours. After about 3 minutes, he stopped, lifted his leg up, and pissed all over the door and floor. He then crawled away and lied down on the floor like a fucking dog. I was shocked. I felt frozen. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure if I should confront him or if I should just leave it and attempt to cut contact. I went with the second option, although I was horrified. I couldn't embarrass my friend of 17 years like that, even if what he did was sick and twisted. But maybe he was just drunk. I don't know. The next morning, I woke up early and asked him to leave and made an excuse that me and Michelle, my wife, had made plans. He understood and left. I didn't block him, as I didn't want to be so blunt about it, but whenever he offered me to go out, I denied, and I would only stick to small talk through messages.
3 days ago, I received a message from him. I know you know. I was horrified. I felt as if a spider egg had hatched and crawled all over my skin. I wasn't sure if I felt threatened in some strange way or if he was just admitting his strange... I don't even know how to describe it. But I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't tell my wife as to not alert her, but I couldn't sleep that night, and I'm glad I hadn't. At exactly 3:57 a.m., I heard a familiar noise at the door. Scratching. The same scratching from a fortnight ago. I knew it was Gary. I didn't know what to do. Should I call the police? Should I answer the door? Was I just imagining it? I didn't know. Against my better judgment, I went downstairs, grabbed a knife just in case, and waited for the scratching to stop. After 4 minutes of constant scratching, it stopped. I waited for around 20 seconds, although it felt like a lifetime, and I opened the door. What I saw is the most disturbing thing I have seen in my entire 28 years of existence. I see a figure, wearing a poorly stitched suit made from real dog skin to fit a human being, crawling away, with a dog's tail also stitched on, with a knife in his mouth, all of this only illuminated by a single street light. I called the police immediately and explained the situation, but they find nothing. I gave them Gary's information and they interviewed him but found no evidence of anything. I can hear him barking outside of my house as I type this message out. Please, someone, what should I do?